Okay, I think I'm live. Hi everybody, happy Capricorn full moon. My phone just turned off. Okay, sound is good. Go ahead and let me know when you guys can hear me in the chat. Hi everybody. Where's the chat? Okay, there it is. All right, so hi Spiritual Warrior 333. All right, we're gonna just hop in. I'm gonna go over here. I'm gonna share my screen. We have a couple of new people, so I wanna just kind of give a little rundown. So if you are new, what you're gonna need with you is your natal chart. I really want you guys to have your chart with you. Like, the whole point of this is to get you familiar with your chart. I'm a firm believer that astrology is a personal practice. While I am an astrologer and I do readings and I do see other astrologers for different insights into my own chart, I'm a firm believer that astrology is a personal practice and that the goal is to get familiar with your own chart, and in doing so, you get familiar with yourself and the unique lens with which you incarnated to experience the whole. So please have your natal chart. There are a couple of different places where you can get that I have linked on the post. Down below on the post on Patreon is the apprentice cheat sheet. I'm sure you've heard me talk about that before. Print it out and have it with you. It is going to help you learn the language of astrology. It's something that I found when I was learning and I used religiously, and I still reference. It's fabulous. So have those things, pen, paper, stuff to write things down. And we're going to dive in. There is a little very short PDF that I made that I will link to the post after I'm done with this video, but we'll go over it throughout the live. Okay. Share the screen. I think I'm going to make myself a little bit bigger because I was super small last time. And we're just going to dive right in. All right, so this is our thumbnail. I always like to put as much here as I can. You guys know that. So this is kind of where we're going to be going here tonight. What we have over here on the left is one of the cards from the New World Order, like, playing card deck. We're at this month, July into August. The rest of the year, really, we're going to dive into a bunch of key dates. But we're at a really pivotal time when it comes to what can best be described as New World Order agenda. The implementing of New World Order agenda and the onslaught of a shift in power structures. And this is mostly because of the Pluto return energy that we're going to be diving into extensively here tonight. But if I could best summarize the stage of the game in which we are currently at, it is this card. Don't forget to smash the state, where we have all of these statues representing the previous control systems, whether it's Washington or King George, these previous orders that have controlled the hierarchy which Capricorn governs in mundane astrology throughout time, that are very much crumbling before our eyes for a new order to be implemented. And we're kind of at this limbo period between the old order and the new order. And like I've said many times, there are multiple different visions for this new order that is being birthed. And there's kind of a little like warring going on amongst factions for exactly how this is going to be implemented. But I thought I would put this card here because I really do think it kind of summarizes, particularly this month, but on through January. It says here, distrust of the government is at an all-time high and society is crumbling. And a lot of this crumbling and distrust is being orchestrated. The more they push forward with agenda, the more people see this hidden infrastructure. And this original civilization, the society is crumbling to the wayside in order for them to be able to swoop in with this complete new version of existence. I think I'm going to do a video in the future on these playing cards. I want to do one on those Hexen 2.0 CERN cards too. And we can look at all of them. It's really interesting. And if this is something that you're not familiar with, look into it. There's some really great videos online. I think even Gigi Young has done one. All right, so this is our Capricorn full moon. I wrote here, bam, this energy is explosive, literally, you guys. This moon is literally conjunct the asteroid BAM, which astrologically is associated with explosions and upsets and sudden events, all of the things that this month and the Uranus-Mars conjunction at the end of the month, all of the stuff that I was already leaning into if you watched my July video for this month, well, this moon is a focal point for it. This full moon is actually a super moon. It is actually our biggest and closest full moon of 2022. So it's the largest full moon that we will have, and it will be the closest to Earth. And so it packs the biggest psychic punch, okay? When we have a super moon, the moon is extremely close to Earth, and so it has a stronger effect on Earth's watery bodies, i.e. the ocean. The moon governs our tides. And on a supermoon, the tides are the most extreme. The same thing kind of happens to our emotional bodies, which are governed by the element of water and the moon. And when we have a supermoon, the same thing kind of happens. The sun is currently in Cancer, the ruler of the moon, the ruler of those same emotional, watery, psychic, and intuitive bodies. And so this energy is heightened. We'll dive more into this later, obviously. I wrote here that this moon is the culmination of the unicorn and the hard-earned initiatory wisdom of the crone. This is something that we went into 6 months ago. So this is a Capricorn full moon, which means it's a culmination. It's the end or the peak of a moon cycle that was initiated 6 months ago when we had our Capricorn new moon. So everything that was seeded then is coming to a culmination. We're also having a deep, deep, deep illumination of this crone energy, which is something we went into, and we're going to touch on in like one more slide. So I'm going to kind of leave it there for now. But this unicorn archetype is something that I have dove into heavily in previous videos. There are multiple different symbolic representations of the unicorn. There is the constellation of the unicorn, which falls in the sign of Cancer, where our sun is right now, sitting opposite this moon. That is associated obviously with the unicorn archetype. It sits in Cancer. The moon itself, the lunar feminine energy, is also associated with the archetype of the unicorn. I have a video linked below or on the PDF where I went into this. And then Capricorn. And I went into this in the previous video that I have linked here. pretty heavily. So if this is something that interests you, I would go back and check that out. Capricorn is one of the signs similar to Scorpio, that both of which are deeply rooted in the initiatory process of the mysteries. Scorpio literally governs the occult, the mysteries, the secrets of existence, and the death and rebirth process to acquiring those, moving from the scorpion to the eagle, where you can see from a higher perspective, having a death and rebirth and being reborn again, as the phoenix tapped into that sort of esoteric truth through personal transformation, personal alchemical transformation, ultimately. Capricorn is similar. A lot of people look at Capricorn as the system, which is definitely an archetype we are going to be diving into heavily tonight. But in those previous videos, I dove into Capricorn as the path of initiation, as the mountain of hierarchy, any sort of pyramidal structure, yes, but also our personal mountain of initiation that we climb. It's the top of the chart. It's the top of the zodiacal wheel. And it's attributed to this path of Saturnian initiation, harsh confrontations with reality, hard work, and the unlocking of deep esoteric wisdom. It's also associated with the crone and more of a feminine archetype, which is something we touched on in previous videos. And so we're having this sort of initiatory culmination, this personal initiatory culmination amongst a whole bunch of what I'm calling mundane madness. And that's what it will look like on the surface, a whole bunch of mundane madness, a whole bunch of things happening through our hierarchies, through our systems of control. And it will look very mundane and very chaotic, but it's deeply rooted in the occult. It's deeply rooted in the spiritual realms. And we're in this sort of very intense chess game this month. And that's something we're going to be diving into. So mundane madness, big moves of the NWO. The difference between a path of imitation, where you're like following and copying and reflecting other people's paths, and this personal path of initiation, where you're following the call of your soul, and in doing so are unlocking this deeply transformative karmic path to enlightenment, ultimately, at the top of our own personal mountain. Capricorn, like I was saying, I didn't finish my point here. So Scorpio has that path of transformation, all those different archetypes, right? Scorpion, eagle, phoenix. Well, Capricorn has a very similar thing. It actually has multiple archetypes, like the alligator and the dragon and things like that, which we'll touch on later. But what it's most known for is the sea goat that can swim to the depths of the abyss, right? Which is part of that initiatory path up the mountain. It's like a tree. The tree of life can only grow so much up, that axis mundi can only grow so much up. It needs to have that mirrored in the roots, right? So we have to go just as far down as we go up. So the sea goat going down, the mountain goat climbing up, and the two unifying after their journeys into this ascended unicorn. So that's an energy that's active right now, culminating right now. This is a path that we've trekked over the past 6 months. So it's like these two have already gone on their quests. And now if we have tapped into this archetype and not a lower octave of this sign, which is what we're kind of going to be leaning in tonight, more of the mundane, now is when this sort of merging, this sort of illuminating can occur. This sort of unicorn archetype can manifest within our consciousness. You are the creator, and the process of dreaming or awakening in layers. That's something we're going to touch on later, but this concept of creating. Persephone and Hades, which are both making strong aspects to this moon. And the concept of wounds. Hades' wound of Mount Olympus, or the lack thereof, and Persephone's wound of being pulled to the abyss. And honestly, the wisdom that they both hold and the need that those stories held as well. Illumination of 1776 secret orders. So we're having Pluto come back around to where it was in 1776. Many people will be talking about how this is America's Pluto return. Today is actually the second of 3 passes. We're going to go over all the dates here later. What I don't hear anybody else mentioning is that year's connection to the Illuminati, which is obviously, used as kind of like a catch-all term for the controlling elite, right? But that term had an origin point, and its origin point was May 1st, 1776 in Bavaria, Germany. And so both this concept of the Illuminati, not the control system itself, but that name, that archetype, and America itself are going through its Pluto return. Pluto is coming back around. Pluto is exposing that which was hidden. Pluto is crumbling power structures, so new power structures can take the lead. It's really intense stuff, and we're going to be going over all the dates. I actually went back in time and mapped it out amongst all of the big kind of things that have already occurred, and yeah, we're in for some interesting stuff. But I wrote here that the hidden system is seen. So this moon, which is a full moon, so it is illuminating, it is shining light into the area of your life governed by Capricorn and the area of our reality governed by Capricorn. And the area of our reality governed by Capricorn is the control systems and the power behind them, and the hidden agendas behind them, because Pluto is there right now. This moon is actually sitting on top of Pluto, which is sitting on top of both America's Pluto and the Illuminati's Pluto. And the moon is fully illuminated. It's a supermoon, the biggest one of the year, the closest one of the year, the brightest one of the year, and is shining right on top of both of these Plutos. The hidden system is seen, but it's seen by them showing their hand and pushing forward simultaneously. So a lot of agenda is going to be pushed forward, but simultaneously a lot of the system is going to be seen. We live in a realm of duality, and it does ultimately work to our benefit on some level the more they kind of push forward. All right, so this is something I wrote 6 months ago for this video here. I just wanted to read it. This is kind of what was being seeded 6 months ago that's coming to a culmination. What we have over here is actually a depiction of the Axis Mundi, or the world tree. This one actually has a unicorn representing lunar energy and a lion representing solar energy kind of battling there, with the unicorn kind of stabbing the lion. The unicorn is usually the lion is actually the one who usually wins the battle. But this war between the sun and the moon, and this dualistic nature that has to turn back into one, is something that we were really diving into deeply 6 months ago. And like I said, I linked all that stuff. So sign of Capricorn, awakening of the unicorn, Kronos and the crone, forgotten queen reclaims her throne, realm of father time, the mountain that we climb, riddles of the Sphinx reveal archetypal links, unlocking primordial wisdom, initiation within the system, unus mundus, everything is of oneness, matter and consciousness are of one, the mother and her son are from the source of where this all begun. So this is kind of what we were talking about. Yes, she says that's feminine versus masculine. Absolutely. The unicorn is the lunar feminine energy, and the lion, which is the archetype of Leo, and the sun is the solar energy. The key point here is initiation within the system that I think we're going to be kind of leaning into here. We're going to be leaning into the system that's all around us and how we're having this sort of a culmination of initiation right now. So what I'm getting at is I'm not going to be diving too much into the beauty of the sign as so much as the mundane system aspects of the sign. So if you want to dive more into this evolved concept of Capricorn, I recommend checking out this video, which I'll link on the PDF after this, where we talked about this concept of Kronos and this authoritarian father who eats his children, this vicious Saturnian archetype who is ruthless and domineering, versus the wise crone medicine woman, shamanic, initiatory energy that the sign also governs. In Vedic astrology, Saturn is neutral, kind of like Mercury, where it's not a masculine sign it's not a masculine planet or a feminine planet, the ruler of Capricorn. And that's kind of what I was diving into in this video, is how Capricorn is an earth sign and it has this deep feminine nature. So I recommend going back and watching this video. Because we choose the archetypes we place upon the stars. We are the writers of our own myth. We choose how it is that we experience the whole, right? And in order to choose our experience, we have to expand our consciousness to welcome in different lenses with which to view said whole. And so this is one of them, right? But we're going to be diving into the other. I'm not going to read this, but this is where we went in that video. All right, grab your chart. We're going to look and find some houses. So you want to actually look and see two houses at first. This is a full moon. So the sun and moon are in opposition to each other. The moon is in Capricorn at 21 degrees, 21 minutes, and the sun is exactly opposite that at 21 degrees, 21 minutes of Cancer. These two symbols right here, Capricorn and Cancer. So you want to look and see where those fall in your chart, and you want to look and see what houses those fall in. For me, Cancer governs my 11th house, and Capricorn governs my 5th house. For you, it will be another house. If you know which house it is, go ahead and write it in the chat. Look to the Apprentice cheat sheet for a little bit more on these what these houses govern, or like I always say, just Google it. This is where you're going to be feeling it most strongly, particularly if you have any planets near 21 degrees of those signs. If you have planets near 21 degrees of Capricorn or 21 degrees of Cancer, those planets are either conjunct if they're in Capricorn, or in opposition, or conjunct the sun, really, if they are in Cancer. So they're very strongly aspected by this lunation. We're all going to be feeling this sort of tug of war between this axis of polarity, these two opposites that are ultimately seeking some sort of balance and harmony in between. We're all going to be feeling that, but if you happen to have planets near 21 degrees, you're really going to be feeling it. And then also looking to see what planet that might be, referencing the Apprentice cheat sheet to see the kind of energy that planet manifests will help you to kind of understand how this might be hitting your chart. You'd also want to look and see if you have any planets in Aries or Libra. as well. Those are the other two cardinal signs. And so that means that they sit in a square to this moon. These are the signs that are going to be feeling it the most strongly. Capricorn and Cancer, conjunct and opposition, and Aries and Libra, which are sitting into a square. You can also look to see, really go around your chart right now in a circle and look at the little degree numbers and just look to see if you have any planets near 21 degrees within a little orb. You know, like let's say Mercury's over at like 13. So let's say like 10 to 25 degrees. If you have any planets, I guess right now just look and see if you have anything really close within 21 degrees. But we're going to go later and we're going to project all the way out, and we're going to pretty much look at another 12-pointed star aspect, and how if you look at the sky through traditional Western astrology, it's a very tense moon. But if you welcome in a lot of these hidden archetypes, yet again, there's a lot of harmony, and there's a lot of harmony that makes a lot of sense, a freakish amount of sense. But looking to see if you have any planets near 21 degrees in any of the signs, that means it's aspecting this moon. And as we move on, you'll see how it's aspecting it. Earth signs are going to be sitting in a trine to the moon. Water signs are going to be sitting in a trine to the sun. So if you have planets near 21 degrees of either the earth or the water signs, they're really working harmoniously with either the sun or the moon at the time of this lunation. Okay, Capricorn. Really quick, we're just going to cover some of the basics before we kind of go all off. Okay, oh, I see you guys there in the chat. Hold on. She says that Capricorn is in her 12th house. So pay attention very strongly to your dreams at this time. The 12th house is the house of dreams, and Pluto there is penetrating down deep into truth. And this is really accessing like deep, unconscious, archetypal, symbolic truths that kind of bubble up from the collective unconscious, because that's all things that the 12th house governs. And then Cancer is your 6th house. So you're kind of starting a new chapter in your 6th house, which is the house of responsibilities and duties and things like that, at the Cancer new moon. And that is making way for these deep, unconscious transformations. Pluto is the planet of transformation. So it's like deep internal transformations at the depths of your unconscious self. That's kind of the archetypal dance of those two houses. But big shifts when it comes to responsibility and duties as well. Hi, Fallon. She says she has a 9th house Capricorn with Uranus there. Ooh, fun. What degree is Uranus at? If Pluto is really close to Uranus, like, oh my gosh, that's intense. Have I asked you this before, Fallon? Are you writing a book? You have Uranus in the 9th house and Pluto's there right now. Uranus in the 9th house needs to write a book. Are you writing a book? I know you're really into depth psychology. And that's why we vibe. And Neptune is there too. And your North Node, all in Capricorn. Okay, if you're not writing a book, Fallon, you need to write a book. Jeez, wow, that's a really powerful house. The 9th house is the house of the teacher and the leader. And I hate using the word guru, but like a sort of like hierophant type person who has been initiated into knowledge and then uses said knowledge. Sometimes it's regular academia, you know, and that initiatory process was like going to college or like advanced degrees. She says, haha, I was literally thinking I was going to write a book a few days ago. Yeah, dude, that's Stellium has to write a book. Please write a book. What was I saying? Ninth house, write a book. Just write a book. Okay, she says 13. Okay, so it's not super close to where this is at, but it's exactly opposite Sirius. Sirius is at 13 degrees of Cancer. Yeah, dude, write a book. All right, Capricorn. We have the sea goat over here. Capricorn is a cardinal sign, meaning it initiates the start of the seasons. Capricorn being the start of winter and the high point, I guess, of the wheel of the year being the winter solstice. It is our cardinal earth sign. So it is an initiatory sign. Like all of the cardinal signs are, they start, they initiate, but it is rooted in the material realm. And so it is really, as opposed to like Scorpio or even Cancer or any of these mystical signs that of course are also rooted in a path of initiation into the spiritual mysteries, particularly Scorpio, Capricorn really governs our, like I said in that thing, the initiation within the system. Like the initiations that come through the system. You guys know, I'm sure you've followed me long enough to catch the drift that I'm not a fan of the government or authority figures or this or, most of the things that Capricorn governs in general. But I do understand the importance of them, especially now, the big moves that have been being made since pretty much 2020 that, we are all adamantly against have been extremely needed when it comes to this initiatory path of awakening within a system of authority, outside authority, in order to force you to turn around and reclaim your own authority and sovereignty. Think of it as a Saturn return. Saturn is the planet we're going to get into in a second. Saturn is the planet that governs Capricorn. When we have our Saturn return, it's when we turn 30, right? And we have this sort of like fucking crisis that forces us to take accountability and responsibility and our step into our own authority. Capricorn has us do the same thing throughout our lives, right? And looking to see where Capricorn falls in your chart will help you to kind of understand how you're supposed to manifest this energy, where you need systems, where you need structure, where you can tap into for the like clues or like the directional, like when you need directions on your path of initiation. Looking to, of course, the top of your own chart, your midheaven, your 10th house, but then also where does Capricorn fall? This is where we have to have a semblance of responsibility and structure. And if we don't, we are failing the physical initiatory process. Think of like, okay, if you guys listened to that Arthurian book that I read on YouTube, you'll kind of get what I'm saying. Think about Merlin. Like he was initiated very deeply into the mysteries of existence, right? Magic and all that jazz. But he was like low-key borderline insane, went mad on the regular, lived in the woods, shunned away from society, and was like not really using any of that to anybody's benefit at all, really. A king here or there who needed a favor. That was about it. Arthur, who kind of represents more of that like Capricornian figure, I guess, has to go in and pretty much like force him out of his forest, his unconscious, which is where we can access all of this wisdom, just like the opposite of Capricorn, in the deep, watery ocean of Cancer, that intuitive psychic realm. We can access a lot, but if we get stuck there, we're worthless, right? Capricorn acts us, I don't know why I can't talk, to take what we've learned there and make it physical. Use it here in the material realm. That's like the second part of this like quest of initiation. And Capricorn very much governs, like I said, that mountain that we climb. Okay, Capricorn is ruled by Saturn, which is the planet of structure, definition, limits, obstacles, lessons. He's the great teacher. These are deep karmic lessons that unlock those truths that set us free and beyond. We have to deal with Cancer, with Saturn. He's the gatekeeper. I say this all the time. Saturn is the last star that we can see with our eyes. He governs what we can see. He governs this physical reality. And then beyond that, we have like Uranus, who starts to enlighten us and break us free and push us to new possibilities. We have Neptune, which is really rooted in the etheric, intangible, otherworldly realms. We have Pluto, that's that alchemical planet that helps us to transform and unlock our own power. But we have to deal with Saturn and the responsibilities of this physical existence first, and the lessons that it holds, and this sort of great teacher, which many look at as, Satan, which Capricorn literally governs the devil. Saturn is where they probably got the word Satan from. Kronos, who devours his children, right? But Capricorn also has this like wise, initiated medicine woman archetype about it as well, which, like I said, I dove into really deep in that other video. Saturn is the planet of challenges, restrictions, responsibility, organization, authority, maturity, patience, hard work, tradition, and karma. Saturn teaches us often through harsh confrontation with reality and through limiting circumstances what we must change in ourselves before we can achieve our ambitions and step fully into alignment with our purpose. He is the planet of karmic initiation. So you can look and see where your own Saturn falls in your chart. This is where you're really feeling this. But Capricorn, because Capricorn is governed by Saturn, the house that Capricorn falls in takes on this energy as well. Of course it does. The world stage is really feeling this energy, this 10th house energy that I'm about to dive into. And if you are an Aries rising, it will fall, this Capricorn moon will fall in your 10th house. If you're not an Aries rising, it's going to fall somewhere else. So kind of mix this energy with the house that Capricorn falls in, which you should have already located. So Capricorn governs the 10th house. This is one of the angular houses, which means it falls at one of the four main angles: the ascendant, the rising sign, the descendant, the setting sign, the midheaven, the top of the chart, that's where the 10th house starts, which governs our mission, our purpose. And then we have the IC, which sits opposite that, which starts Cancer, and the IC is the bottom of the chart. It's our deep internal self. And Cancer governs the subconscious, our deep internal personal self, our personal subconscious, as opposed to the collective unconscious, our personal subconscious, and our inner world. Capricorn governs the outer world, and so it governs our mission in the outer world, our mission and our purpose out there on the world stage, but it also governs the world stage and all that that entails. So that's what's really being illuminated right now by this moon. It is one of the angular houses, like I just said, and it governs our mission, our purpose, our career. our ambition, our influence on the collective, how one sets out to achieve their goals. Usually the father figure or authority figures like bosses or the government, until we become our own. So it governs our authority figures, and then it can also govern us as our own, especially if you work for yourself and things like that and take your own authority back. You can really start to become that authority in your own life. And like I said before, that really starts to happen first when we have our Saturn return at age 30. We have another one around age 60. But it governs authority figures until we become our own and remember who we really are. It's the house of our public standing, our reputation, worldly attainment, and abundance. Public role, influence, one's tendency to be dominated, so to give their power away to outside authority figures, or to dominate, to be that authority figure upon others. So like people who are very strong in politics or like kings and stuff like that have really strong placements in the 10th house. And then I wrote here, the goal is to find a sort of middle ground where you're not being dominated, but you're also not dominating others. This is a quote from my mentor, Rick Merlin Levine, who I worked under for a while. He says that Capricorn represents the work that is tied to the path to the top of our individual mountain. And so it usually is connected strongly to hard work, but hard work that has longevity, hard work that has purpose, hard work that's rooted in a mission, hard work that's rooted in what we came here to do on said world stage. We all have it, right? Looking to see where your own 10th house is will help you to kind of understand this. And then Capricorn governs this energy for us on a collective scale. Capricorn's archetype, like I said before, is the sea goat. It's often, sometimes in other cultures, associated with the alligator or the dragon, like in Babylonian lore. It's the mountain goat and the unicorn. How are we rising? I don't know, you guys. I wrote this 6 months ago. I don't know where I was going with this. I guess I probably knew more about what I was saying 6 months ago. The mountain goat and the unicorn. How are we rising? Maybe I was leaning into you can climb the mountain as the goat, or you can have an integrated the sea goat, alligator, dragon aspect to said goat and rise as the unicorn. I'm gonna roll with that. That makes sense. If anybody watches that video later, let me know what I said. Are we in alignment? Capricorn energy is steadfast. It's resilient and ambitious, responsible, efficient, disciplined, but it can be insensitive, rigid, harsh, overly conventional. They are loyal, reliable, wise, and they are the Zodiac's realist. They're very rooted in reality, what you can see. But it's a sign of contrast. They have, like every sign, so many paradoxes, right? So everybody's really going to be taking on this sort of energy, and it's going to be rooted. This moon is very rooted in strong emotions, so just be mindful that everybody's kind of taking on this archetype during this time, because it can be a harsh one. In the mundane world, Capricorn governs the ruling class. It governs the pyramid. It governs established governments, royal families, national prestige, and our party leaders. And this is really going to be a focus during this time. I dove into this deeper in the other video, but I'm just going to read it really quick. This is the esoteric interpretation of Capricorn. Capricorn as the unicorn. And here you can even see how it's integrated that sea goat aspect as well. The unicorn. The spiritual symbol of Capricorn inspires disciples, indicates one-pointedness, a continued upward movement into divinity and purity. The unicorn moves slowly, never forgetting what is gained through experience. It reaches unreachable heights. Most of the astrological signs have animal symbols. Capricorns are the crocodile, the mountain goat, the sea goat, and the unicorn. Okay, let's dive into some stuff. Okay. I'm gonna check in with the chat really quick. Yeah, Fallon, please write a book. Spiritual Warrior 333 says, my Saturn is in my 12th house. Saturn in this Aquarius. Are you going through your Saturn return? Saturn is in Aquarius right now. Fun. How old are you? 12th house. That's a fun placement for Saturn. That's a strong placement for Saturn. The 12th house is the house of past lives. And Saturn is the planet of karma. And so that is a sign of like strong past life karma. Yeah, you're going through your Saturn return right now. I would do a little research on that. Do like Google Saturn return and read some blogs. It's a pretty significant transit that you're going through right now. Okay, so let's touch some stuff. I was gonna try to like start with normal astrology and branch out and get more intricate as we go, but I couldn't separate a lot of this stuff, so we're just gonna dive right in. Happy very early birthday. Okay, so the moon falls at 21 degrees and 21 minutes of Capricorn, exactly opposite the sun. We'll talk about what's over here later. Let's talk about what's here first. What's really aligning with this moon. We have the moon conjunct Pluto. Pluto today is the 11th. The moon is on July 13th at 11:37 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time, Pacific Standard Time, whatever. So that's in 2 days. Today, on the 11th, Pluto made it to 27 degrees and 33 minutes of Capricorn. This is the exact degree of America's natal Pluto. It'll be off by like literally 3 minutes at the time of this moon. So this moon falls not only on top of Pluto, but on top of the natal Pluto of both America and, like I said before, the Bavarian Illuminati, which is where that word originated from, that we now kind of use as a catch-all for the whole thing, but they're still very deeply rooted in it. Germany is so rooted in this stuff, it's ridiculous. People don't mention that enough. I don't know why. It's part of the conspiracy, I'm sure. The moon is a supermoon. It is the closest moon of the whole year, the brightest moon of the whole year. It's shining brighter than any place on this whole chart throughout all of 2022. So here on the world stage, it's really shining light into these things that we're going to dive into here. But for you, somewhere in your chart, whatever house this is at, this is really illuminating for you. Fallon, maybe this is really the message that you are having come through to really show you, like, you need to write that book, you know? And for everybody else, it's some sort of culmination. Looking back, if you set intentions or did any sort of manifesting 6 months ago, these would be the things that would be coming to fruition. When we have a full moon, It's 6 months after our new moon. We planted seeds 6 months ago. They've grown, and now it's time to harvest. We harvest our reward for this 6-month journey, and then we have a period of waning where we then let go and shed and integrate and purge and transmute from this area as well. So that's what's going to be happening in this sign for you. A huge, huge, huge illumination, and a 6-month culmination, right? On a world stage, this supermoon is like a super flashlight shining on the shadowy underbelly of our control systems. Capricorn governs the system. Pluto governs the occult. It governs the hidden agendas, the shadowy underbelly of existence. It's retrograde right now. Interestingly enough, both the 1776 chart of America and the 1776 chart of the Illuminati, both have a retrograde Pluto. So their charts speak very strongly to this retrograde energy. I have a retrograde Jupiter in my chart. Jupiter is the planet of growth and expansion. And what I have noticed by following, it's the only planet I have retrograde in my chart. It's in the 8th house, so it helps me dive in deep internally and process occult subjects. I'm actually quite a fan of this placement in my chart. But what I've noticed is that it's the planet of expansion. So when Jupiter transits are happening and everybody's like expanding, you know, having all these big things happen, like I'm really not. That kind of happens for me when everybody else is going inward during a Jupiter retrograde, and that's how I feel like all the time because my chart has that, and I can actually start to expand outwards. So it's like reversed. So I have a feeling that these Pluto retrograde would manifest similarly. I don't know, guys. I did eat an edible before this. So Mercury is aligning with Sirius at like 10. What time is it? 10:14 p.m. And I scheduled this live stream for the same day. And I was going to reschedule it. So I normally don't like to schedule things like this when there's like big celestial things happening because I like to do like my own thing. But Sirius falls in my 11th house, which is the house of the collective. Like it literally would govern you guys. And it's Mercury, the planet of communication, which is my ruling planet. Mercury rules my first house. And it's sitting in a harmonious alignment with my natal Mercury and Pluto, which helps me dig deep. And so I figured I was supposed to be like talking to you guys at this time. And I was like, I'm just going to take an edible and start channeling and see what comes through. And so that's why we're here. But also I can't talk. Okay. What was I saying? America's Pluto. Oh, the retrograde. So they have the retrograde planets. And so a lot of the pushing forward of agenda, I've noticed, is kind of tied to the retrograde part of this 3-part return. So Pluto came back to where it was in 1776, and then it stationed retrograde. And so it went forward, aligning with both these Plutos. Then it stationed retrograde and aligned with it again through a retrograde motion. Then it's going to station direct, and it's going to go and do a 3rd pass. And I've kind of mapped all these dates. And so I'm just going to kind of dive into these notes and kind of dive into this rabbit hole before we go on. Okay, you guys are talking about Saturn returns. Okay, so let's talk about America's Pluto return first because it did actually happen first. So America's Pluto falls at 27 degrees and 33 minutes of Capricorn. We had our first return back in February. It was actually February 20th, 2022 when Pluto came and aligned with that exact point. 2 days later, Russia invaded the Ukraine and pretty much started World War III. We then had Pluto station retrograde in April. It was actually on April 29th, the day before Beltane. On that day, Moderna put in for FDA approval of the shot for children. I actually went back. I mapped this all out by using the thread that we've made on Discord, the New World Order thread, because we've been posting everything as it happens. And so I found these dates, and then I scrolled back on those threads, and I was able to kind of map out everything that's gone down. So station retrograde in April. Today is actually the second pass of Pluto with America's natal Pluto. I wrote here, we are having protests literally everywhere. The Hunter Biden stuff is making waves once more. We obviously have CERN going on, but I wrote here, keep your eyes peeled for some big event here in the next couple of days. Maybe more so aligned with this moon on the 13th. Like I said, it's the 11th right now, because I haven't really seen an event that I feel like they've latched on to today's second pass. But I have a feeling we're going to see something here in the next couple of days. So we have the World War III Russia event, really tied to that first America's Pluto return that we have in February. The things tied to the Illuminati degree are just as significant. So while America's Pluto falls at 27 degrees, 30 minutes of Capricorn, the Bavarian Illuminati's falls at 28 degrees and 35 minutes. So both of them are retrograde natally. The first pass of this Pluto alignment with the Illuminati's Pluto alignment was actually on April 3rd. And I went back to see what was going on around that time. And that was when everybody, all politicians, people in the public sphere were just like using the words New World Order like all willy-nilly. Like everybody, I had a post in Discord about like, wow, is this some mantra? Like what is going on? Everybody was just like using it in their speeches, like the New World Order, the New World Order. So I wrote here that around April 3rd, let me know if there's anything else that you guys remember happening around April 3rd. I don't post everything in the Discord. I do want to be better at it because it does help with things like this. But the mantra New World Order was being used by everybody, including our president. At that time, Pluto was direct. So Pluto actually stationed retrograde pretty much on top of the Illuminati's Pluto, like almost exactly on top of it. It stationed retrograde literally exactly on top of it. Exactly on top of it in April. Like I said, which was Beltane, and that's when Moderna put in for the vaccine for the kids, almost exactly to the day. The second pass of this was on May 25th. So on May 25th, it was the World Economic Forum were meeting for their summit in Davos. And that was the day that the guy said that by 2030, your smartphone will be in your body. And they said all kinds of other things during that obvious ritual event. They also came out with the monkeypox being like a huge thing. And they bought 13 million vaccines for the monkeypox. And at the same time, the European Union was pushing for digital currency. That all happened within like 3 days of this second pass event. So the final pass for both of these Plutos are yet to occur. The third and final pass for America's Pluto return will be happening in December, actually on December 28th. And the final pass for the Illuminati's Pluto will be happening on next year, early next year, on January 24th, 2023. And both of them are happening really significantly aligned with things. So the one in January will be happening exactly conjunct Pandora's box. There'll also be a Saturn-Venus conjunction on that exact day. Saturn and Venus have a lot to do with like relationships and contracts. Contracts of like structure and control. It'll be happening in Aquarius, and so it can have a lot to do with groups in the collective, right? Other countries, but it's happening square Uranus, which is the planet of revolution and rebellion and technology and electric upsets, whether that be fires or explosions or riots or anything unexpected or erratic or unpredictable. The sun will also conjunct Pluto just a couple of days before that. So we will be able to see, the sun helps us see. The sun shines light into Pluto's abyss and helps us see what maybe we couldn't see before. So whatever it is that's going on at the end of the year from December to January, it will be blatant to us. Not only will it be here in the public sphere, in the world stage, but the sun will be shining light right upon it just a couple of days before it's exact. There's other aspects, but I don't think it's really too important. What I do want to kind of lean in here is that this moon is kind of like a foreshadowing of the rest of this cycle. You know, we're at the midway point today for at least us here in America. Because of the way it kind of fell, we've already had the midway point for the Illuminati one. That one was when they were all in Davos. But we're at the midway point now for America, and then we'll be kind of like over some sort of hump. This degree here that the moon falls at is actually the exact same degree as the Saturn-Pluto conjunction that literally kicked off COVID. When we had lockdowns, it was directly tied to the Saturn-Pluto conjunction in early 2020. Within days, if not the exact day. That is the strong astrological energy that kicked off lockdown, that kicked off everything. This moon is right on top of that degree. And so it's reflecting that whole story. It's illuminating the hidden power structures, the occult undertones of that whole narrative. And this power shifting hands, which is another thing that the Saturn-Pluto conjunction and Pluto returns in general represent, are like kind of like the ends of one order and the start of another. Shifting of power from one system to another. We're kind of seeing how much has already been implemented, because Pluto does things underground. Pluto does things where we're unable to see. Many of us can, of course, see things. You know what I mean? But for the most part, we're unaware of how much hidden power. Pluto's planet of power. It also governs that which is hidden. And Capricorn governs systems. So how deeply rooted the hidden power structure is. How deeply rooted it is into pretty much every facet of the world stage that the sign governs. And this moon, the biggest, shiniest, brightest one of the year, is shining a light right on this dark underbelly. And it's a dark underbelly not just of our current system, but it's rooted all the way back, obviously, to 1776 and beyond that, really. But a lot of this is bubbling up. Pluto pierces in deep and digs things up from the surface in order for it to be exposed and then transformed. Okay. I see you guys chatting in there. Okay. Is there anything else I want to say about this? No. But keep an eye out over the next couple of days. If you guys are Patreon members, I'm going to try to stay up to date more on like posting all the little things that go down. But I think we need to keep better track of it. So you guys are more than welcome to post anything over on the threads on Patreon. I try to stay up to date, but sometimes I forget. Because that really did help me map out these dates. And I think that's like a really fabulous resource for like connecting the dots. Okay, so on the thumbnail I wrote, bam, this astrology is explosive, literally. Literally, you guys, this moon is not only conjunct Pluto, America's natal Pluto, and the Illuminati's Pluto, all right here, as well as the degree mark of the Saturn-Pluto conjunction that started this whole fucking mess, or ultimately, it's helping us to see what was kind of already there, you know. It's a mess, but I guess it was like a needed mess. Not saying that I condone their plan at all, but I do think that the more they push forward, the more they are exposed. So, you know, it does have a silver lining, I guess. But it's also, this moon is also conjunct the asteroid BAM. So I saw that, and it's like BAM in all capitals. And I was like, oh, it's probably named after like some acronym for whatever, right? And I was right, like it was named after something, but okay, so it falls at, I believe, 20 degrees. Where did I put it? 20 degrees. So it's like 1 degree off from the moon, the asteroid BAM. The asteroid Tesla is conjunct Pluto, so it's conjunct this point too. Tesla's at 27 degrees, exactly on top of Pluto. Asteroid Tesla, which represents obviously advanced technologies, you know, technologies that can go bam. Technologies rooted in advanced science. Technologies like, I don't know, CERN or 5G or HARP, both 5G and HARP piggyback off of Tesla technology, inverted Tesla technology. But the asteroid BAM, right? So at first I was like, oh, it's just going to be an acronym for something. And it is. It says here, the asteroid BAM, which is the asteroid number 2031, is the heroic builders of the Balka Amur Main Railroad. So BAM, railroad. It's also slang. This is from my asteroid encyclopedia. It says that it's also slang for barbiturates and amphetamine combination. I was like, what? But I don't know, maybe somebody out there is like on Xanax and Ritalin. Xanax is, well, it's a benzo, not a barbiturate, but I don't know what a barbiturate is off the top of my head. But maybe you're taking some sort of prescription that you're going to be working on, transitioning off of. Maybe this is a sort of illumination for that. So I left it on there because maybe it speaks to somebody. I don't know. Bam is also a link in China. It's a city in Iran and Russia. But it says here that astrologically, Bam seems to signify explosions having to do with explosives or bombs, explosive or sudden events, things or ideas that are exploded. So I think it's pretty significant that that's conjunct this moon when this moon is trine CERN. We'll get on that later. We also have the Georgia Guidestones. Oh, my phone died, so I don't have the chat in front of me. Oh, well, I'll come check in with you guys every once in a while. My charger's not in here. Georgia Guidestones blew up, or whatever narrative you want to believe. And then I saw today that there was I didn't look into this, so I don't know if it's true, but I saw a post on Instagram with this like huge building on fire in the Netherlands, and it said that it was a Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation grocery store that specialized in like synthetic proteins and like new age foods, and it like blew up or something, so that's fun. But definitely rooted in power, Pluto, explosiveness, high technology, but also like deep, intuitive, otherworldly connection. Tesla was a brilliant man, you know what I mean? He was a brilliant man who didn't play their game, and that's why, he died poor as shit, and all of his stuff was either stolen or suppressed, and he wasn't able to, fulfill a lot of his inventions, including free electricity that ran off Earth's energy and all of these beautiful, glorious things, He doesn't even get credit for inventing the alternating current that we run on, We learn about Edison in school, who was an asshole. So it's rooted in the, awakened rebel. Tesla did not play their games, He believed in aliens. He believed in otherworldly consciousness, and he was tapped into something profound that was then, of course, taken, inverted, and used to ultimately control, which Capricorn governs, right? But this is a very volatile moon for a multitude of reasons that we'll expand on as we go, this being just one of them. On the PDF, I actually linked a blog post by an astrologer where he dove into the historical charts or people's charts, where this BAM asteroid is really strong, and he tied it to the JFK assassination and big explosive events or ideas or moments in history. It was pretty interesting, so I tagged that for you guys if you want to read it. Anything else I want to say here? No. Oh, it was also Tesla's birthday yesterday, so that's pretty cool. Tesla's birthday is on July 10th. It's actually also my brother's birthday, July 10th. Tesla has a huge Sirius stellium, which we have Mercury aligned with Sirius today. It'll be off by a couple of degrees at the time of the moon. It's exact today. It's actually exact at 10, whatever. I'm going to look back and see. 10:13 or something. I said it earlier. 10:14 p.m. I don't know what time it is now. And I guess we can touch on this now. So the moon is conjunct Pluto, which we just talked about. It also sits opposite this huge stellium here, right? So it sits opposite the sun. which is conjunct Persephone, her mother Ceres, which is the same archetype as Demeter. Demeter's actually over here, not too far away in Leo. Lilith is also within orb of conjunction to this moon, which is conjunct Mercury, which is aligned with the fixed star Sirius, which is not too far away from Lilith. Lilith is actually a key player in today's Mercury conjunction with Sirius. They're very close to each other. Tesla's birthday was yesterday, so his sun falls here. He has a whole Sirius stellium all aligned here in Cancer. He was very deeply rooted in the Sirian stellar consciousness. And this moon is obviously reflecting that back to us in multiple ways. Not only do we have all these placements aligned with Sirius, but we have the asteroid Tesla here as well. It's conjunct Pluto. Pluto is the planet of shadow, and transformation. And so while I did list a bunch of fabulous, wonderful things attributed to Tesla, I'm a big fan of Tesla. I think he's meant well and did fabulous things and tried to really take humanity in a different direction, and it didn't work out for him. The things that he did develop and the ideas that he did have, the advanced ideas that he did have, were the catalyst for dark, shadowy power systems to latch onto in order to create mass mechanisms, Capricorn, for death. Pluto governs death. Tesla even created the death ray for our U.S. government when he was working for us. Had a contract, not us, I'm not the government, but like the U.S. government, when he had a contract with them, which is rooted in like microwave technology, which is rooted in what 5G is now. And so this like shadow of brilliance that bubbles up as well. You know, we live in a realm of duality. Everything really is kind of a double-edged sword. And so that's part of what's being mirrored at us on this world stage that Capricorn governs. While Capricorn governs the world stage, Cancer governs our inner stage. Cancer governs our personal subconscious. It governs our traumas, our early life programming, our intuition, our emotions, our compassion, our empathy, our inner world, our innate, initiatory, psychic senses. It's the first water sign. The moon is the first planet beyond the earth. It is our first psychic planet. Cancer governs the moon. It's a cardinal sign. It initiates our psychic abilities, our inner knowing, our intuitive body, our emotional body, and everything that comes with that. It's deeply, deeply, deeply rooted in the mother archetype, in the wisdom of the divine feminine, of the womb, of cycles of growth and alchemy and awakening and the waves of clarity and being pulled down into the abyss. It's like both sides, much like it's glyph, you know, coming up for air and seeing things so clear and then being pulled down into the depths to see what you saw clear just a little bit more clearly, but going into the thick of it. And this stellium here really is going into the thick of it. So on the thumbnail I wrote Persephone and Hades, the wounds of Mount Olympus and the underworld's abyss. So Pluto is Hades. It's just the Roman version. The sun is here. The moon is here. The moon, the feminine lunar moon, is conjunct Hades. Let's just call him Hades right now. In Capricorn, which governs the mountain. So let's say that's Mount Olympus, right? It's sitting opposite our sun, which is in Cancer, lighting up our underworld, our personal underworld, our personal subconscious, which right now is very dark and penetrating, because not only do we have this Pluto opposition helping us go deep, but we also have Persephone, who's literally made to get pulled down into the underworld to go deep. And we have two Liliths here right now, helping us to go as deep as we can go, because she's already fucking done it herself. So Persephone is here in the underworld's abyss, right? And both of these are sitting square Chiron, and Eris, the planet of chaos and discord, and feminine power, which is ultimately what Persephone is on a quest for. Hades pulled her down there, and he gets blamed for it all the time. You know, Hades saw Persephone, kidnapped her, pulled her to the underworld. But Hades is one of those villains that is very misunderstood. I don't even think he would have been a villain if his story was different. So first, the Persephone part of his tale. He's credited for kidnapping Persephone and taking her down to the underworld. But the only reason that happened is because Aphrodite, the divine feminine, the polarized, fractured divine feminine, much like an Eve, she's not whole in and of herself. She sent her son, Eros, Cupid, to shoot Hades, Pluto, with an arrow. Because she was like upset that he didn't have a girlfriend. She felt bad for him. She was like, oh, he's lonely down there in the underworld. He needs somebody. Go shoot him with an arrow. So he got shot with an arrow, and he was like obsessed with passion. And he sees Persephone, and he takes her down to the underworld. So people leave that part out of the story. Another part that they leave out of the story is the fact that this Mount Olympus wound, you know, after the Olympians defeated the Titans, they kind of like split up our reality, right? Zeus was like, I am going to take the sky. Poseidon, they were all brothers. Zeus, Poseidon, Hades, they were all equal. They were all brothers. They didn't rule anything yet. This is when they were deciding, oh, you're going to be the sky god. You're going to be the ocean god, you know? And Zeus was like, I'm going to be the sky god. Poseidon, you're going to be the sea god. And Hades, you can have the underworld. And Hades was like, yo, I don't want the underworld. I want one of these other things. And he was like, no, you get the underworld. So they banished him down there. They made him who he is, right? He has this wound of the mountain. He has been shunned down to the abyss, and it's time for that part of our consciousness, which is right now very much represented by Persephone, because Hades always should have been a woman anyway, representative of that deep, dark, feminine consciousness, which we see reflected by this moon conjunction, so showing us that this, much like Eve is not a proper divine feminine archetype, woman from man's rib, or Aphrodite from Uranus's severed penis, or Athena from Zeus's head. Like, none of these things make sense, you know? And masculine consciousness governing the underworld also does not make sense. And so him pulling Persephone to the depths helps her to reclaim this domain that was always hers to begin with. This archetype here, this whole stellium, is a reflection of the mother. We have the sun shining in the sign of Cancer, shining this light of the mother in the subconscious. Persephone reclaiming these dark parts of herself here in the abyss, helping to integrate these wounds that both masculine and feminine parts of our consciousness hold, right? Hades needs to be able to climb that mountain. He needs to be able to shine his light. You know what I mean? He needs to be able to obtain this initiatory path upward. And his story is a reflection of the feminine. We see that moon reflects, right? The moon is right there reflecting this narrative to us as well. And this is really speaking of that trek that we go through every Cancer season. We're all in our inner world right now. Cancer governs the home, our physical home. It governs our family, but it governs our inner world, our innermost world, as does the fourth house. So looking to see where your fourth house will help you to see this a little bit more clearly. We have the mother here represented multiple ways. Not only the Cancer archetype, but the asteroid Ceres, which is Persephone's mother, is here as well. We actually have Persephone sitting right in between asteroid Lilith, which is like that dark primordial part of her consciousness, that power that Lilith, that feminine power that Lilith governs, that ideally is what you would try to reclaim by traversing these parts of your consciousness and integrate, right? But it comes with, of course, its own quest of shadow integration and working through, you know, the traumas and the programming and the projections and things like that. But Persephone is right in between these parts of herself and this, her mother, ultimately, which is what she's working to return back to. What she returns back to her mother in the spring, when she is reborn and alive and flourishing, both her mother, the earth, fertility, but Persephone herself reborn anew as that kind of phoenix, the phoenix that can only be born from the depths of the abyss. So these wounds, much like all chironic wounds, are really the wisdom. They're really our medicine, right? Okay, so this moon is sitting opposite this huge, deeply feminine stellium. This is where we just had our new moon. This is where we are starting a new chapter. We're having a culmination here, a culmination of energy, a peak of energy, a harvest, an illumination. We're able to see so very clearly right here, something that has transpired over 6 months. And we're starting a new chapter here. Mercury is exactly conjunct Sirius tonight. This kind of ends our Sirius alignment that we have every July. Venus will make it over later. I think maybe sometime next month, Venus will make it over. That'll be the last one of the personal planets. But Mercury is the planet of our mind. He is the celestial bringer of consciousness. He is the deliverer of messages. He helps relay the celestial realm to our human minds. And so this is a really clear time for messages to come through about whatever house, I would say both these houses, whatever house both Cancer and Capricorn govern in your chart. And so if you've been looking for clarity, insight, information that will help you to expand and be initiated into something deeper, something spiritual. I'm not going to go too deep into Sirius. If you want to dive deep into Sirius, just watch my Lionsgate video here on YouTube. I dive ridiculously deep. I just have a couple of notes here that are more rooted in like traditional Western fixed star astrology. These are kind of like the archetypal expression that is really aligned with our mind right now. And our mind is in this Cancer, watery, intuitive realm. And so it is deeply rooted in trying to understand the inner workings of ourself and our subconscious like kinks, right? But also simultaneously unlocking our innate initiatory psychic abilities, which the sign governs and really sparks into being. Our awakening really, before we can tap into any of these more advanced like Neptune or Uranus or any of these other things, really we have to get right with the moon, with our emotions, with our intuition, which is why I believe they attack the moon so heavily in so many different esoteric and occult circles. It drives me insane. Okay. Sirius is the star of initiation. Okay. Whenever Sirius is activated every summer, starting in July, first week of July, we see so many things happen on the world stage. You guys have seen it happen. Like literally the moment the sun aligned with Sirius, 15 minutes later, the Georgia Guidestones blew up. So many different revolutions. Sirius is deeply rooted in revolutions and uprisings and revolts of certain countries. And this year was no different. We've had several. It's a strong star, and it's deeply rooted in liberation and initiation into the outer spheres, right? It's deeply rooted in the feminine, not only because it falls here in Cancer, but because mythologically it's rooted in the goddess, not only through Isis, but through other ways we're going to touch on here in a second. So it's rooted in divine feminine light. So we talked much about the unconscious power of this primordial essence. We can see here that we have masculine expressions down there in the underworld as well. Hades is there, right? Satan is there. Saturn is there. Kronos could be there. The devil or whatever, you know? And we have feminine expressions of light. And the Isis, the mother goddess Isis in Egypt, is very deeply rooted in this light goddess, but also the guardian of the veil of the mysteries and the unknown, which is, of course, rooted in the darkness because it is not known, it is not in the light. So it's rooted in divine feminine light, the mother Isis. It's the dog star constellation, Canis Major, the brightest star in our night sky. These are the dogs of Orion. Both the dog and the star were worshipped as guardians, either the guardian of the dead or taking dead souls back to their mother, the goddess. In early times, dogs in myth only accompanied the goddess and guarded the gates of death. Man's best friend, I wrote here, man's best friend, my ass. And my dog is like literally my soulmate. In Christian mythology, Sirius and this entire constellation of Canis Major was associated with Saint Peter and the gates of heaven, playing the exact same role as the dogs, which is guarding and judging those who could pass. Ptolemy states that Sirius is like Jupiter, the energy of Jupiter, with a touch of Mars, which is interesting because Jupiter is the philosophical planet that helps us to like study and acquire knowledge and expand. our minds, right? And Mars is the planet of initiation. So it's to say that Sirius is attributed to Mars and Jupiter actually makes a lot of sense, because it's initiatory, like initiatory bursts into knowledge and expansion. And that is how I feel and have experienced Sirius over several years now of tracking these movements. But it's very rooted in the feminine expression. It's like deep insights that like bubble up from the self, bubble up from your own subconscious, as we can see here by all this Cancer energy. According to modern Western fixed star astrology, Sirius grants fame, honor, as well as faithfulness and guardians. It's the maker of great deals, able to make the mundane sacred, which is kind of what I have been leaning into with the whole initiation within the system. The mundane aspects of our reality are really not mundane at all. Everything is sacred. Everything is a ritual, whether some of them are consciously done and orchestrated, right? But really everything is a ritual. Really everything can be decoded, because everything is coded, as we can see here in the sky, right? Able to make the mundane sacred. It's the star of making small actions. Symbols. Making small actions symbols and bringing ritual into our daily lives. It's known as the Shining One. This star is associated with the flooding of the Nile and the fertility that brings. It's the focal point of the Egyptian calendar and many occult orders. In Egypt, this constellation was depicted as a cow laying down with Sirius between its horns. The dog guides Orion, the man, home to the goddess. The Chinese knew of it as Tianzi Long, which means the heavenly wolf, which is just another name for a heavenly dog. So I love how like the East and West have the same, when you look at the constellations and like the star names, like they're so similar. It was when we started to make systems, Capricorn, all these different astrological systems, that we started to change a lot of the narrative. But the legends rooted in a lot of these main fixed stars are so similar, and that's why I really do believe that it originated in Atlantis, because it's the only way that it makes sense. Okay. So the star is known as the lustrous, sparkling, bright one, which plays an important role in conjuring magic. So be mindful, because we're literally in the midst of a spell right now, and that spell is probably going to continue on well into January and beyond. But like really, this whole Pluto dance is a giant one. The CERN that'll be on until winter time. That's another thing. I didn't touch on this in my CERN video because I found it out later. So CERN turned on. It's going to stay on until 2026. And it turns off every winter right around the like solstice point. It turns off every winter, and then it starts back up again every spring. So it's only on during the light part of the year, and it's turned off during the dark part of the year, which just puts so much more credit on my whole theory that it is a light-based occult ritual, polarized in the light and focusing very strongly on the polarity of light, while simultaneously trying to study the dark matter, occult it, harness it, and use it to their own end. All of their launch dates are on the solar year, high holidays, solstice points, midpoints attributed to the light, and then they're literally closed down during all of the parts attributed to the darkness and the goddess, which is suspect as fuck. Considering their machines need to be extra, extra, extra cold, like freakishly cold to work, so you'd think they'd want to even work more in the wintertime, although they're like down underground in like high technology chambers, so the weather doesn't really affect them, but still. Okay, this planet is known as the lustrous, sparkling, bright one, and it plays an important role in conjuring magic. And Sirius is aligned with it right now, aligned with Lilith, which is rooted in our own power, our power to create, our power to rebel, our power to be and demand equality and sovereignty. So this moon is ideal time for any sort of like ritual or practicing of your craft in any way. Okay. So a couple mundane or traditional transits that are happening. I'm just going to come check in with the chat and make sure you guys are chill because I can't see you guys. Okay, so you guys are good. Okay. So, not only is Mercury conjunct Sirius, but it's sitting square Chiron. So Mercury is conjunct Sirius, and it's sitting in a square to Chiron, which is actually conjunct the Sphinx as well. So there's a riddle here. This insight into the self, this conjuring of magic is not going to come easy, right? Capricorn, nothing comes easy with Capricorn. Everything is a test. Everything is an initiation. Everything is hard. With Saturn, if you have strong Saturn placements, if you have strong Capricorn placements, if you have strong Aquarius placements, both of those signs are ruled by Capricorn, everything is fucking hard, man. Everything is hard, but it's all somehow karmically worth it, right? So Mercury is conjunct Sirius and like all this brilliance is coming through, but it's sitting in a square, a literal exact square today, when it was exactly conjunct Sirius today. It's over here at 17 degrees at the time of the moon, but today it's on top of Sirius, in a square to Chiron, meaning we have to address these deep-seated core wounds that reside within the self, okay? So not only does Cancer govern our inner world, our personal subconscious, our inner emotional body, but Aries, which is another cardinal sign, both of these are very strong initiatory signs. Aries that need to take action. They're initiatory signs that need to take action. Aries, it's a square Chiron in Aries. Aries is the sign of the self. So this is the inner self, and this is kind of like our I mean, it governs the self in general, but more of our outer self. The Aries, or the first house that Aries governs, is attributed more with like our persona, how we come off, our first impressions, right? But Aries governs the driving force that is our self, our primal consciousness, our raw, emotional, aggressive, territorial, selfish, self-centered self, right? That's focused on ultimately self-preservation. And Chiron is there. Chiron represents our wounds and our wisdom. He is the wounded healer. So he takes the pain, he takes the wound, he takes the venom, and he transmutes it into knowledge or wisdom for advancement, for initiatory advancement into an avenue of healing. Ultimately, Chiron is rooted in the medicinal arts as well as the psychological arts of healing our psyche and any ailments that may manifest as. Sometimes this can be like physical wounds and physical pain, and sometimes this can be emotional wounds and emotional pain. Both of these are manifesting right now, but it's this being as though the sun is in Cancer. I mean, you want to look and see what houses he's fallen for you, but Cancer governs the 4th house, which is the house of the home, the mother, and our early life trauma and programming. And so a lot of those are where the sun is kind of shining right now in a square. Mercury's in a square to Chiron. Mercury is what we're kind of our mind is kind of plugged into, the messages that we're getting, right? They're bubbling up from the subconscious. They're rooted in the mother. They're rooted in unlocking the mother within. They're rooted in aligning with the power within, with the psychic senses within, with shedding these programs and traumas and understanding that we are not what happened to us. We're rooted in something much more ancient and primordial. And this Mercury placement that's getting all these messages, right, from early life traumas and the mother and all the things I just listed, is in a square to Chiron, which is currently in Aries, the sign of the self, trying desperately to heal us as a whole, right? Aries governs the spark of life from the abyss, and then it kind of like fractures out into here, and this all is us, right? The whole chart is us, right? But Aries really is like us in a nutshell. Jupiter just moved into Aries. He's really expanding, giving this rebirth of the self, this phoenix moment, this new chapter, this new quest, this new embodiment of, a new persona, right? We're constantly evolving and shedding who we thought we were for who we are becoming, and then we'll shed that again and become something else, right? But this Chiron is really asking us to dive in and alchemize, okay? Pluto is, yes, the planet of power and hidden agendas and death. It governs death. It governs the process of death, rebirth, and transformation. It is the alchemist. It governs alchemy. It governs the destruction process that needs to occur, the rebirth of something new from the abyss of what was. And this energy is obviously being highlighted so strongly with this moon. And so we are being asked to transform these parts of our chart, of ourselves, of our reality that are being highlighted in order to move forward and awaken and progress on into our future. Because not only is Mercury conjunct Sirius and in a square to Chiron, but it's in a sextile to Uranus. So it's working harmoniously with Uranus, which is the planet of awakening, expansion, illumination, progress, the future of humanity, right? That's how it's manifesting for us on a world stage, on a personal level. On a collective stage, Uranus governs group mindsets, cult mentality, technology, advancements in technology, revolutions, rebellions, uprisings, things like that. And so that energy is also working harmoniously with our sun right now and in a trine to this moon. So that's how we'll see it kind of manifest on the collective stage. It's also trining the north node. That's how we'll see it kind of manifest on a collective stage. But for us, it's really helping to break us free and liberate us. And a lot of that may come through technology. I mean, I'm talking to you on a computer right now. You know, I wouldn't have been able to do any of this without one. It definitely did help illuminate everything for me at this time, to then illuminate it for you as well. Okay, a couple other things I want to point out. Venus is really strongly aspected at this moon. Venus is the planet of relationships, others, interpersonal connections, right? Particularly in Gemini, isn't necessarily romantic. It's more just like networking, connecting, communicating, sharing of information, sharing of ideas, right? Venus at the time of this moon is in an exact trine with Saturn retrograde in Aquarius. Saturn, like we said earlier, is the planet of structure, of limitations. He's the control system. Saturn, Pluto conjunction that happened here where the moon is back when 2020 started, really started what Pluto is now finishing, which is a deconstruction of the Capricornian system, while Saturn here in Aquarius is simultaneously building a new futuristic system that's rooted in a wider collective. Like, think this as like our government, our country's government, and think of this as like the world governments all working and networking together. Saturn trine Venus at this time, they're working harmoniously. They're working as one. Saturn is retrograde right now, and so the Saturnian systems are revisiting their structure, their plans, their actions. When Saturn stations direct, it's going to be taking another wave forward when it comes to implementation. For us on a personal stage, this is a beneficial, harmonious energy when it comes to finances. Both Venus and Saturn are connected to like our abundance and our finances and our ability to grow and be self-sustainable. Venus trine Saturn also speaks to like commitment and longevity when it comes to partnership or any sort of deals that may be being made during this time. They're working hand in hand. This is also helping to bring others into the mix. Both Gemini, this sign, and Aquarius, this sign, are air signs, and they are rooted in communication with outside people, right? Other people. Venus is rooted in that as well. Connecting with others in order to fulfill our quest, in order to climb the mountain, in order to trek this trek of initiation, in order to have a semblance of structure and security and authority. Figuring out how to work with other people is imperative. And at this time, like, things are becoming clear around that, if that kind of makes sense. Because not only is Venus in a trine to Saturn, so working harmoniously with Saturn, which is retrograde right now, so it's giving us a little bit of breathing room, and it's helping us reassess. What it's really helping us to redo and reassess is our boundaries, because Saturn governs boundaries. boundaries, systems, structures. But Venus is also in a square to Neptune retrograde. So Neptune is the planet of illusions and delusions and confusions. Other things as well, which we'll touch on here in a second, but those, when Neptune is retrograde, those kind of shatter. We're able to see more clearly what we could not see before, and we're able to reassess. And Venus is kind of working to reassess with both of these planets right now. Neptune is wiping the one layer of the dream from our eyes. Like I said in the thumbnail, we are dreaming and awakening in layers. That's actually one of the cards that I pulled. And this Neptune retrograde is here to help wipe one more layer off our eyes. And once that is wiped and we're able to see just a little bit more clearly, Saturn will demand us to take action. Saturn governs Capricorn. It's actually in a semi-sextile to this moon. So it's technically aspecting this moon. They're not working together harmoniously. It's a very irritating aspect. But it's requiring us to step into our authority and take action, reassess and take action and responsibility for what it is that we can now see just a little bit more clearly. And looking to see, of course, what houses these fall in for you will help like illuminate that more. Okay. So, what else do I want to say here? Okay, so a couple other things that are coming up after this moon. This moon's on the 13th, right? On the 16th, Mercury, after aligning with Sirius today, will align with the Sun. This is called a cazimi, when Mercury and the Sun align with each other, both of which are connected to our consciousness. The Sun is more connected to like our vitality and our more egoic, solar, polarized consciousness. Mercury, because it is rooted in both masculine and feminine polarity, is a more balanced consciousness. But the two of them together really, really, really does represent what we see, what we know, what we understand, what we think, right? And when the two of them get together, things are very clear, especially during a Neptune retrograde. So pay attention around the 16th. Whatever is coming through this Sirius alignment, whatever the Sun is digging up from our Cancerian subconscious realm, right? Whatever Neptune retrograde is exposing in our unconscious, it's going to be made very, very clear at this time, because not only will Mercury conjunct the Sun on the 16th, but it will be in a trine to Neptune retrograde. So we have this huge clarity coming through the same time that it's working harmoniously with the illusion being shattered. So we'll have Mercury and the Sun aligned in a trine with Neptune retrograde. I wrote here that that's on the 17th. I wrote that to just remind myself to mention this. So you guys remember last year when I did that whole Lionsgate video and I went like all up on the 8s? I forgot to mention this. So I didn't think it was important because I thought these people were going to disappear, but they have resurfaced, so I guess it is important. The QAnon psyop is, I guess, back up in full force. The dude's like posting again, and these people are like right back in that mindset. So the number 17 is connected to that whole narrative because 17 is the Q is the 17th letter of the alphabet. So they always like tie things to that letter, right? So I just wrote, pay attention around this time, because who knows what kind of false flag kind of psyop bullshit is going to be going on, in order to rile us up so we can't see too clearly, in order to like lean in very hard and overcompensate. The world stage is very much going to be doing that. But then I noticed that the 7 and the 1, they reduced to 8. So remember I said like, oh, Trump had the 8 on he only followed like 8 people, and I like tied 8 all to him. Well, this also goes down to 8. Anyway, things are going to be weird, dude, over the next couple months. The astrology is so weird, and like pivotal big stuff, and then like big stuff that had already happened in 2020, like big transits are being like re-triggered. Big things that had already happened are being re-triggered. Okay, so a couple other things that are going on are on the 19th, Chiron will station retrograde, and on the 20th, Eris will station retrograde. When planets station retrograde, they are stronger than ever before. They like manifest their energy at like a peak pinnacle way. Chiron is going to like laser in on some part of this healing of the self journey, and something will probably be made painfully clear that will probably work to understand and integrate over its retrograde period. Eris is very unpredictable and rooted in chaos and disorder, and it should definitely be interesting considering this is happening square this Pluto return energy that we are in the midst of. It's happening square the sun at that time. It's intense. The end of the month, and then right after that we have the Uranus, Mars, North Node, CERN conjunction all happening here. Like the whole rest of this month is just like bam. It's like the best way to explain it. Bam. It's volatile, and we see it manifesting on this world stage, but like also in our inner world. We're in Cancer season, so a lot of this is happening internally. Let's just keep that in mind. But we're going to be starting a new, or like really focusing in on an area of our primal fiery consciousness. This Chiron retrograde will revolve around the asteroid Sphinx. So, I mean, I've already kind of leaned into this in my January video. We are in Wonderland. You know, I haven't watched Stranger Things, but, you know, they talk about the upside down, like the mirror realm, this realm of riddles and symbols and mirrors and truths, but lies and nonsense and deep insights and access to the mysteries. We're kind of in this realm, right? And this Chiron retrograde is going to be dancing right over the asteroid Sphinx. And so all of the triggers that we work through, all of the healing that we hopefully do, all of the painful confrontations with these parts of ourselves that aren't always so pretty, are all ultimately leading us on this path of initiation. I have a little bit here on this asteroid Sphinx. So the asteroid Sphinx is connected to unsolved mysteries. These are unsolved mysteries of existence, of the esoteric realm, but like also of ourself and our reality, right? It represents an enigma, a paradox, questions, missing information, lack of answers, and understanding about points that are an aspect to it. So that it's going to be in aspect with Pluto. So these Pluto retrograde, well, I guess it will be an aspect to Chiron, and Eris will be an aspect to Pluto. But I mean, it's still within the orb of Pluto. But really, it's an aspect to Chiron. So we have a lack of understanding, lack of answers about these wounds, right? But the Sphinx, if we can embrace the riddle and the mystery, can help lead us to what it is that we're missing, right? It's a mythological figure with often a lion's head and a woman's body that ask riddles, but it kills those who answer wrongly. So it's better to admit you don't know and embrace the unknown than to push forward with a fully structured narrative of events as we navigate the coming months and whatever ensues after. Because, like I love to say, we are in a waking spell, you guys. Things are not as they seem. So the Sphinx guards the secret hall of records, and it's associated with the archives and the knowledge of Atlantis. The Sphinx in Egypt is believed to have the Atlantean Hall of Records like underneath it. Edgar Cayce said that. Who knows if it's there, but this archetype is connected to the guarding of this esoteric, occult, mystery tradition, right? As is Sirius, or Mercury is right now. So we're really able to kind of tap in. That's why I said this moon is like a culmination of initiation amongst a whole bunch of mundane madness, because we really are in a clusterfuck of New World Order shenanigans while simultaneously having deep, deep, deep personal, internal initiations into the unknown, ultimately. Okay, so, all right, so we're going to do this how we did it before. I broke this up into the archetypes that are working harmoniously with this moon and the ones that are triggers. So these are the free-flowing, harmonious aspects, the archetypes that are working together. If you want to look and see if you have any planets near 21 degrees of the earth signs, if you have planets near 21 degrees of the earth signs, they are sitting in a trine to the moon and they're sextile the sun. So they're working harmoniously with both the moon and the sun. And next we'll do the water signs, which if you have planets near 21 degrees of the water signs, they are sitting in a trine to the sun and a sextile to the moon. So everything you see here is working harmoniously with the culmination that we see happening at this moon. Like I said before, we have the moon, Pluto retrograde on top of both America and the Illuminati's Pluto. We have the asteroid Tesla right on top of that as well. So the shadows of the tech, the shadows of brilliance, right? And then we have the asteroid BAM, which literally governs explosions. I'm interested to see if anything else blows up over the next couple of days. I mean, we had the Georgia Guidestones. We had that, apparently Bill Gates freaking grocery store, which I have to look into. Does that really exist? Are people really shopping at a Bill Gates grocery store? Like, oh my God, the New World Order is like literally already here. It's already here, guys. But these are all working harmoniously with the moon. So it's a very volatile, penetrating, deep energy that is Pluto pierces, and the moon illuminates. And so this area of our chart is really, we're really able to lean in and see very clearly into the shadows when it comes to this sign. But the energy is volatile, and it is rooted in this like technological karma as well. This moon is sitting in a trine to Uranus, the North Node, and the CERN asteroid, which we talked very heavily about in the July video. Mars will make it over here and join this party at the end of the month. That is extremely volatile energy. And it's sitting in a trine literally to the asteroid Bam. And Tesla, which is rooted in the same sort of technology. The North Node is humanity's path forward, the path that we're taking. And so this is fated. It is karmic. It is destined. It is obviously dangerous, but it's what humanity has to do in order to move forward. Uranus is the planet of technology, but he is the planet that helps to liberate us from this Saturnian system in order for us to break free and move beyond. Sometimes we don't always do it in the most aligned ways, right? But these archetypes are all working harmoniously with this moon. The energies are working together. We also have over here in Virgo, our third air sign, we have the asteroid Psyche. Psyche, astrologically, is associated with psychic and physical bonding, erotic love, raw psychological wounds, recovery, ascension of the soul. Psyche is the Greek word for soul. We think of it as the mind, but in Latin it literally means soul. Her story is a story of initiation. She is the first human to be granted godhood and ultimately immortality through intense trials and tribulations, and an intense personal initiation story that ends with her ultimately devoting herself to the goddess, and then reclaiming her power herself. This asteroid is associated with the recognition of childhood trauma, which is something we're being illuminated right now through Cancer season, vulnerability, memories, insight, psychic impressionability, psychological recovery. It represents the state of our mental health. And some students of Jungian psychology have chosen the Psyche myth as the female story, considering it symbolic of the effort to bring the unconscious up to the conscious, which is what we're trying to do here at Cancer as well. Where the male myth they attribute to the Arthurian legends of the Holy Grail and the masculine return to the feminine within. And he's, that archetype is aspecting this moon too. We'll get there eventually. But Arthur, Merlin, and the asteroid king are like all conjunct Chiron and the Sphinx right now. Actually, they're like right here. And so it really speaks to that wound being one of the ones that we're healing. It's deeply rooted in the masculine severing himself from the feminine in his quest back there. So we have the asteroid Psyche. The asteroid Psyche is actually conjunct both the asteroid Academia and the asteroid Alexandria. Alexandria is attributed to the Library of Alexandria of ancient Egypt, which was burned and destroyed, but was rooted in lost ancient sacred knowledge. You know, it's believed like we had Atlantean records and like all kinds of far out shit, and then it was all destroyed, or the Vatican took it, whatever, who knows. And now we have this realm of academia that is, you know, lost this connection to the mystical, the magical, which is represented by Circe right here, which is exactly conjunct academia. Circe is a witch in Greek mythology, and so the asteroid itself, much like Hecate, is attributed with magic and witchcraft, although hers is very deeply rooted in like illusions and distractions. I have a little bit of notes here. I wrote, Circe is connected to witchcraft, magic, but rooted in illusions, distractions. She's the enchantress who kind of like held Odysseus captive for like a while on his Odyssey and like lured him and distracted him from his quest, you know? She's the enchantress. She's celebrated for knowledge of magic and herbs, especially venomous and poisonous herbs, which kind of speaks to that like wound, right? Chiron is wounded by the venom of the Hydra, very similar to like a poisonous wound. It's the dark side of nature, right? Circe is also rooted in the magic that was present in Alexandria and absent from our academia. Our academia is more rooted in the illusion that Circe represents, as opposed to the knowledge that she's also attributed to. And then we have this sort of like psychic wound, but a psychic wound that is our gateway to ascension and initiation, if we can move past it and integrate it, right? That is working harmoniously with this lunation for us and also them. Like they can play off of these deep seated unconscious psychic wounds for their own ends, you know? And we can lean into the same or other psychic wounds and face them head on and integrate the knowledge and wisdom that they hold, so that we can move past them and continue on this trajectory of our mountain, climbing our mountain, which you can actually see quite beautifully here, you know? This is the mountain we're climbing. Apparently there's an explosion at the top where we explode into a unicorn. I don't know. And this is what our foundation is built upon, and the things that we need to address so that, you know, this mountain doesn't crumble on us on our way up. Okay, so these are all working harmoniously with the moon, as are these. These are our water signs. These asteroids are sitting in a trine to the sun and a sextile to the moon, both of which are harmonious aspects. They're working more strongly with the sun than the moon, though. And what we have here is Neptune retrograde, so that planet of mysticism, of magic, of illusion, of confusion, of truth, of lies, that is retrograde right now and shattering these rose-colored glasses in order for us to see just a little bit more clearly, particularly a little bit more clearly in this realm of the unconscious, this realm of dreams, this realm of symbolism, this realm of spirituality. This is the illusion that's shattering before our eyes in order for us to see just a little bit more clearly what it truly is. This planet is sitting in a trine to the sun. It's conjunct the asteroid Juno. The asteroid Juno and the sun will actually be exactly trined on the day of this moon. So it's at 21 degrees in an exact trine to the sun. Juno is the same archetype as Hera, although Hera is attributed much more to this like angry, vindictive, jealous consort, which she had every right to be because Zeus was like running amok and raping everyone. While Juno, which is her another manifestation of her, is more rooted in the like fertile mother, connected to like childbirth and the like cow, the celestial cow of abundance and feminine like expansion, right? She's the consort to the sky god, and she was more respected, I guess, than Hera. So she's more rooted in the balance and equality and the exaltation of the goddess, although she was already falling from grace very, very quickly. But Neptune retrograde is helping to see just a little bit more clearly how important these unconscious aspects of our consciousness are. Neptune governs the unconscious. Pisces, where Neptune is, its home sign, governs the unconscious. And Juno, the mother archetype, governs the unconscious. And so Neptune retrograde is really shattering illusion and showing us how important that which we cannot see, that which we cannot know, that which we cannot understand truly is, and how important it really is to embrace the mystery and these deep internal impulses of our personal subconscious, but also the collective unconscious and the symbols and the archetypes that bubble up from it, as opposed to that which we can see in the light, that which we can know, that which we can grasp, which of course is important in and of itself, but it is not the whole, right? We also have in this grand trine the south node. So we just like the north node was aspecting the moon, the south node is aspecting the sun. I mean, it's also aspecting the moon through a sextile. And conjunct the south node, we have Pandora's box and the south node in Scorpio, the sign of the mysteries, the sign that governs the veil, the sign that governs the occult, the sign that governs the alchemical transmutation of the soul from scorpion to eagle to phoenix, who knows thyself and has embraced the mystery that sits on the other side of the veil because it has glimpsed just a little bit of it. And then Pandora's box, which is retrograde and conjunct that point as well. Pandora's box represents, of course, everything that was let out of it, which many of it would fall here in the dark underbelly of Scorpio, where the south node is right now, the karmic south node, which is bubbling everything up from the past in order for us to karmically address. But Pandora also represents, especially the box, our hope. The only thing left in that box is hope. I point this out all the time. Pandora freaked out after she let all the shit out, and she closed it and she trapped hope in there. And so, not only was hope at the bottom and we couldn't even get to it until she let all that stuff out for us to address, but it's still in there. And so somebody has to be brave enough to dive in to these shadowy parts of not only ourself, which Cancer more governs just the self, But of our reality, the dark parts of our existence, the hidden agendas, the nefarious undertakings, the power structures, the hate, the greed, the pain, all of the taboo parts of our existence. Not only do we need to traverse everything that came out of Pandora's box, but we have to then make our way back to the source and let hope out of its captivity. And the only place we can find this right now is in the depths of our self. But these are because it's in Scorpio, so these are the depths of our self that we then project onto other people. But this is also the depths of ourselves that we're willing to traverse and alchemize into wisdom, because Scorpio governs not only the projections, but also the acquisition of mystic truths through that alchemical transmutation process. It governs both. So this energy is working harmoniously with this moon, and it's working with the South Node. So we're really plugged into not only where we're going, this new crazy technological advanced truck forward, right? But we're also rooted in the past. South Node's rooted in the past, the karma of the past, but also the wisdom of the past. So it's rooted in the past, but it's rooted in the wisdom of the esoteric, of the occult, of that which is just on the other side of the veil and very hard to grasp, and you can only grasp through a personal initiation process and not the imitation process of following others' footsteps, but in diving into it for yourself. Scorpio dives in, and they dive in deep. Okay. And then we have this huge Cancer stellium, which we've talked about here tonight, but I want to touch on a couple of extra asteroids that are here. So we talked about how the sun is at 21 degrees. We talked about how it is conjunct Persephone at 20 degrees, Lilith at 18 degrees, and Persephone's mother at 25 degrees. But it's also conjunct Osiris at 20 degrees, which is interesting because Osiris is the male, so masculine archetype that is much like Pluto and Hades, is connected to the underworld because he is one of those kind of solar type deities. Although Horus is more connected to the sun. He's actually connected to Orion, but the archetype that dies and is reborn and goes to the underworld and is reborn again in the upper world. And so he speaks very much to that process of the masculine counterpart's quest into the abyss and home to the goddess, ultimately, Isis. I mean, he doesn't make it very long, but, that's ultimately the story. And then there's also the asteroid Kiev, which is like one of the main, if not the capital of Ukraine. It's either the capital of Ukraine or like one of their main cities. It's also one of, the focal points for everything going on with Russia in that area. So I found it interesting that it's so strongly aspecting this moon. we can expect to see more coming out of that area. Russia's here too. I'll get there in a second. The asteroid Russia. The first pass of America's Pluto return, Russia went into the Ukraine. Today is the second pass of America's Pluto return. And this moon is aspecting all these asteroids. I said when Pluto went retrograde that they were probably going to kick back a little bit on that narrative. And I mean, the media at least did. There's really no way for us to actually really know what's going on over there, but the media hasn't really been pushing it so strongly. But I have a feeling that it's going to bubble back up bigger than ever before. And it's going to be intense. Okay. So all of these energies are working harmoniously with the culmination and illumination that are taking place at this moon. And if you have any planets near, I put the degrees here so you can look and see. If you have any planets near any of these archetypes, they're really working on channeling this in. And so, like, let's say your sun is here, you know what I mean? And it's conjunct Psyche and Circe and Alexandria. Maybe these are archetypes to kind of dive in during this moon. Maybe watch some documentaries. Maybe read some stuff about this. Same thing for anywhere else those things might fall. Okay. So these planets, while these ones are working harmoniously, which doesn't necessarily mean good, you know what I mean? It just means like unobstructed, CERN could blow up tomorrow and it would be aligned with this moon because it's working harmoniously, right? I don't think it's gonna blow up, at least in our physical reality, because like I said, all the elites live in freaking Switzerland. They're not gonna blow up themselves. But I do think things may blow up in our etheric, unseen realm and then ripple into our reality. So it may not be literal, although it could be actually super hella literal. It could be like, they could blow up the Giza pyramids tomorrow for all I know. Something like super literal. They just blew up the Georgia Guidestones. Who the fuck knows? You know what I mean? What can happen? But these are all working harmoniously. These ones, on the other hand, okay. These ones, on the other hand, are what I'm going to call triggers. So these are archetypes that are in need of integration. They're causing tension. They're like the pebble in the shoe or the antagonist in the story. These, what we're going to look at first are the fire signs. And then we'll look at the air signs. If you have planets near 21 degrees of the fire signs or the air signs, those are not sitting in what as harmonious of an angle. They are sitting in angles that are requiring action, requiring compromise, providing tension, providing triggers, providing annoyance. If you have planets near 21 degrees of Aries, it's sitting in a square to the moon. If you have them near 21 degrees of Leo, it's sitting in a quincunx, which is that pebble in the shoe aspect. And if they're near 21 degrees of Sag, then it's a semi-sextile to the moon, which is also a very annoying aspect where they can't really see eye to eye because they're looking at things too closely and to each other, that they are unable to kind of interact in a harmonious way. And the elements do not manifest from the same polarity. Okay, so these ones here, this is all feminine energy. Okay, we have the earth element, feminine polarity, trining the moon. We have the water element, trining the sun. These are both feminine expressions, so they speak kind of like the same language. This, the fire and the earth, the fire and the air are masculine, are of our masculine polarity. So they are triggering, they are opposing, but this is not necessarily bad. They're just forcing action or compromise or shifting to occur. Okay, so over here in Aries, we have the asteroid King, Merlin, Arthur, and Sphinx all conjunct Chiron. So the wounds and that riddle that we talked about are kind of rooted in this initiatory quest that the Arthurian legends represent, that is the quest of the king, Arthur, back to the goddess, which is representative of this wound that he's ultimately trying to integrate, right? The wound of the Fisher King, which is cut off from the fertility of the goddess, right? And Merlin, which is still representative of that masculine energy, but he's rooted in the unconscious, he's rooted in the goddess, is the intermediary that guides him on his quest, that they ultimately failed. But we are the representation of this story, and we're currently repeating it. This is the quest that humanity hasn't fully grasped yet. That's why he is the once and future king, right? Because we are currently trucking this exact same quest of initiation. We are the once and future king. You are Arthur. I am Arthur. We are all Arthur. We're also Merlin and everybody else in the story. These are all aspects of our consciousness. And so we have this inner Merlin who's helping to heal this wounded masculine egoic part of our consciousness in order to allow him enough humility. Ultimately, this is all stuff happening in Aries, the sign that needs humility. Y'all trust and believe Aries. Whew. Man. What was I saying? Oh, give that solar king part, that egoic part of our consciousness, enough humility, healing, and integration of these fractured unconscious parts of himself in order for him to make his way back home to some sort of middle ground, right? And so we kind of talked about this narrative here. This is all kind of happening more in the earlier degrees of the sign, more aligned with Chiron. But aligned with the moon, we actually have the asteroid Beer. Yeah, there's an asteroid named Beer, and it's named after, you guessed it, beer. Just the drink. Not even like a lake in China. I put this here because shit's gonna be crazy. You know what I mean? I just keep it in mind that alcohol is working against us right now. It is a trigger that can cause ultimate chaos because the asteroid Beer is on top of the asteroid Eris, which is literally the goddess of chaos and discord. So if you're thinking, I'm gonna go like party hardy and get totally plastered, like, I don't recommend doing it on this moon. That is my astrological opinion. But if you do, let me know what happens for documentation purposes. Okay, so also in this grand fire trine, this triggering grand fire trine, in our list of antagonists kind of working against us, but ultimately still on their own quest, you know, this personal healing chironic journey, this little stellium here, Chiron, Sphinx, Arthur, Merlin, King, all working together, right? They may be working in a square to this moon, right? So that's a trigger that's forcing us to take action. That's a 90-degree aspect that's forcing some sort of action, some sort of compromise. So this isn't necessarily bad. It's not like that they're antagonists working against us. They're just forcing us to shift and change and ultimately take some form of action, right? And hopefully the action is not drinking a bunch of beer, because chaos may ensue. Okay, so also as part of this grand fire trine, we have the asteroids America and the asteroid Austria, which is deeply rooted in the Bavarian Illuminati as well. Austria and Germany kind of go hand in hand. And America and Austria are right on top of each other right now. In a triggering aspect to this moon, it's actually a quincunx. So a quincunx is what Rick calls the pebble in the shoe aspect. It's like annoying and irritating and in your fucking way. So it's not working as harmoniously with this moon, meaning this huge supermoon, this brightest, closest moon of the year, shining on top of America's Pluto, shining on top of the Illuminati's Pluto, which is rooted in Austria as well. The Bavarian Illuminati is rooted in Austria, and America is obviously rooted in America, right? The moon is shining there. We're able to see. We kind of have some sort of like level footing. Like that moon, that super moon, that bright ass moon with all that light that's shining right there on top of these Plutos is working with us and like kind of against them, or in an annoying aspect to them, in an irritating aspect to them, which is kind of comforting. So part of this grand trine, this grand fire trine, is also this huge little stellium here. Okay, so we have the galactic center at 27 degrees, in an exact semi-sextile to Pluto. We have Atlantis retrograde at 23 degrees, which is conjunct Clotho, which is one of the fates. She is the fate that spins the thread. So we have one that like draws out the thread, one that spins the thread, and then one that cuts the thread. Do I have anything on here? I thought I wrote some stuff. Well, I wrote somewhere that Clotho is gifted the ability to choose who is like saved from death and who like dies and like their cord is cut. She has some kind of say over like who is saved and who dies. And so she was one of the fates that the ancients like attributed a lot of like the say to, you know what I mean? They looked at her as having some sort of say in when they perish, right? But she's definitely rooted in fate in general and the weaving of our fate. And so the fact that Clotho is aligned with Atlantis and the galactic center, the weaving of our fate spans ultimate timelines. Obviously, it's pretty apparent that we're repeating a lot of Atlantean things right now. You know, karmic things, they're probably being mirrored in a much more technological way. But these are things or archetypes or situations that we as a collective have experienced before. And we'll probably experience again because things happen in waves and order is an illusion and structures will fall so that new ones can be built. And that's just kind of how things are. And so the weaving of our fate is rooted not only in this vast galactic mind that's bigger than just Earth and humans, right? It's vast and expansive and very hard to explain, much like a black hole, which we just got a picture of. But we have the Atlantis, we have Clotho. Our fate is weaved into this. And then we have Medusa retrograde, which yet again speaks to the severed and the repressed feminine and the wisdom that it holds, the alchemy that it holds. Medusa, yes, she's full of pain and the repression of the feminine pain and wounds. But she also represents the alchemy and the turning of that pain into wisdom to save multiple divine feminine archetypes, including a partner and a mother. And also from her head is alchemized the Pegasus. And so it speaks to the severing of the feminine, but also the healing, beauty, magic, and wisdom that occurs when you reintegrate that part of our consciousness. And all of this is weaved together by Clotho and making a triggering aspects to this moon, forcing us to take action, forcing us to trek these paths that we've trekked before, but we're also trekking for the first time because we repeat things, but they're never quite the same, right? So it has these echoes of the past. But we're very rooted in the development of the future while simultaneously experiencing the present. It's all very strange. Okay, so these are all triggers, right? If you have planets near any of these, that planet is also aspecting this moon or the sun in a triggering way. If you have planets here in Aries or here in Libra, those are sitting in a square. Those are really feeling that sort of like call to action. Okay, so these are the other planets that are sitting in a kind of triggering aspect to this moon. And this is our grand air trine, the last triangle that makes up our 12-pointed dodecagram, which falls in every single one of the signs and represents complete harmony, right? This falls in our other masculine sign, the element of air, masculine element, the element of air. So we have Saturn retrograde at 24 degrees, which is sitting in a semi-sextile to the moon and a quincunx, so very annoying aspect to the sun. So we have Saturn retrograde, which is having us reconfigure our structures, our boundaries, our limitations when it comes to the collective mindsets, the future trajectory, our groups of friends, our mindsets, and just our interaction with humanity as a whole. We have the asteroid Gilgamesh at 19 degrees. This is interesting because much like Atlantis, Gilgamesh is attributed to the flood. So I wrote here, he is a Babylonian hero. He's kind of like the Babylonian Hercules. He has like a bunch of labors and like a bunch of stories attributed to him. But he's very strongly attributed as like the hero of the flood. But much like Merlin, he failed a lot of his like initiatory quests. Like he did some things and that like made him like a hero. Even like Hercules. Heck, Hercules is the one who freaking wounded Chiron. Like it's like these like failed hero archetypes, right? Well, Gilgamesh is attributed very much to the flood, being like the hero of the flood, and also lions and like the taming of the lion. the overpowering of the lion, the like integrating of this like solar consciousness, this egoic consciousness, right? He is rooted in kind of like the solar cult archetype though. And then I linked a link to like the Babylonian mythology. It's just like the Wikipedia, but where it like breaks down the like tablets of Gilgamesh and the story. It's pretty interesting how closely it follows other mythologies, but it's rooted in the past, in the flood, in the order that was created after the flood, in this new order that severed connection to the old order, and in doing so, ultimately, the feminine expression, right? Babylonian tradition, it does have feminine deities, you know what I mean? But it is deeply rooted in the masculine polarity, and was directly responsible for like seeding all solar cults that then followed and turned into ultimately monotheism, even though it itself is a pagan tradition, but it is rooted more in the god than the goddess, even though Babylonian tradition in and of itself has strong feminine archetypes, but they're always now in modern like esoteric circles really inverted and turned very dark. And not dark in like in a primordial empowering way, but in a inverted and an inorganic way. Okay, so Gilgamesh, flood, Saturn retrograde. Aquarius is also the sign that is kind of attributed to the flood. So the fact that Gilgamesh, the hero of the flood myth, is in the sign of the flood myth, and Saturn retrograde is there, which is the planet of karma. And so when Saturn's retrograde, we're like reconfiguring our like karmic ties, right? And this is in a triggering aspect to this moon. So it's seeking some sort of integration, some sort of action, some sort of compromise. So it's really asking us to look at these mythologies for what they are and reassess the like karmic ties to them. You know, the Babylonian flood myth is an interesting one because other mythologies speak much more to like just destruction, like humans bad, we have to send a flood, cleanse, make it good. You know what I mean? Start over from scratch. Shit was horrible. But like the Babylonian flood myth speaks to like a little bit of that, but also like the accessing of immortality, certain people's accessing of immortality through that cleansing rebirth process. So it gives a different lens to it. And I found that really interesting. And so the Saturn retrograde has a sort of karma tied to it. And it's rooted in the flood and the masculine narrative that then was implemented pretty much everywhere after that, and was the core foundation for all of the civilizations that then blossomed after. Okay, so also working in a triggering aspect to this moon is the planet Venus, which is sitting in a trine to Saturn. We talked about that earlier. And the asteroid Hecate, which is the planet of magic and witchcraft. And so it's triggers being made from that realm, and also like an inability to really access that realm easily. It requires a give and take. It requires a compromise. It requires a shifting of energies on our part as well. And then we also might have things getting in the way. And so we have Venus, which represents other people, our value system, our interpersonal relationships. It's in Gemini right now, which literally represents like siblings, our schooling, our immediate environment, like neighbors and things like that. And then it also represents, Gemini also represents the internet. So information, the relaying of information through other people and the internet. So this is also not really aligned with the illumination at this moon. So this moon might be a really great time to unplug from social media and lean into the inner world of the self so that you can really experience this illumination. And the final triggers that are working not in a great alignment, not in a harmonious alignment with this moon, but in a harmonious alignment with Saturn and Venus, which is very rooted in contracts and relationships and power struggles and systems of power, are Washingtonia, which is named after George Washington, which of course would also bring in like Washington, D.C., and I guess even like the state of Washington. So that archetype and our government systems, you know, and then Russia at 23 degrees. So we have our country very strongly aspected, Russia, and also the Ukraine. Kiev is like right on top of the sun. So it's a tense moon. I don't know. This Pluto return stuff is going to get crazy as the year continues on, and yeah, but as you can see, the moon is super harmonious. These are working with us. Planets here are working with us. They're really lending aid. They're really working harmoniously. These ones, on the other hand, are asking us to take some sort of action. They need compromise. They need integration. They need something to shift, or they're just straight up in our fucking way because they are on a different mission entirely and it is not aligning with the one that is manifesting at this moon, at this culmination point. All right, I pulled some cards and we'll call it a night. I'm going to come see if you guys are saying anything that I need to comment on. Okay, you guys are just talking about your chart. My phone died. I usually like to have it in front of me. Okay. So, this fucker is really going to be being illuminated during this moon. Like, keep your eyes, as much as I want to, like, unplug during this time, it's just going to be popping off, and if I'm not on the internet, maybe you guys can post it in Discord so I can know what's going on, because that supermoon, the brightest one of the year, is just being illuminated right now. That which is hidden there too, because it's Pluto, so it's going deep, deep, deep into what was unseen, right? And we're simultaneously having this, like, illumination of the unicorn within, something that we've been developing over the past 6 months, right? So it really is like a deep personal initiation amongst mundane madness. It's trying to distract us. It's trying to get us to feed our energy into certain directions. It's trying to trigger us. It's trying to lure us in. And we got to be mindful of that, right? So I pulled some cards. The archetype card I pulled, I was like, all right, what is the overall archetype that we are working to embody right now? And the archetype that came out was the creator, which is pretty interesting considering in my July video when I said, I talked about CERN and I talked about how, they're very strongly rooted in the archetype of Shiva, which is part of the Hindu trinity of the creator, Brahma, the sustainer, Vishnu, and the destroyer, Shiva. So they are rooted in the destruction archetype, and they have a statue of Shiva outside, and I'm actually reading a book right now about like esoteric physics, and even they talk very much about Shiva. It's rooted in their occult philosophies, this energy of destruction. And so I talked about this in the July video about how we right now more than ever need to compensate for this influx of destruction that organization and their experiments represent. We need to lean very strongly into the creator and the sustainer archetypes. And so I found it interesting that the creator came out. It's so beautiful, this card. All the watercolors and the bright colors being like birthed from that like darkness of the abyss, which is really representative of the unconscious, which is where all art comes from. It comes from the same place as the archetypes. It comes from the same place as dreams, our imagination, symbols, the mystic truths can really be unlocked through the power of creation. So I'm going to go ahead and read this from the book, but this is something that you can, maybe consider doing on the moon. Paint, do something like that. Okay, the creator. The artist, the alchemist, the innovator. The creator. The first archetype in the trio of existence is not intimidated by darkness or by lack. They know that from the void, creation inevitably emerges. With meager, minimal, and outlandish materials, the creator reveals a new image. They make the empty room resonate with healing sounds. They generate bounty from the seed that others tossed away. Through generations, this archetype annihilates preconceived notions of what is possible, leaving unexpected openings in the wake of its destruction. The creator does this by first being absolutely present to what is, not imagining or wishing things were different, and second, trusting that a force greater than themselves, which ultimately is still themselves, awaits constant collaboration with each human soul. Whether we call it nature, God, goddess, Shakti, or divinity, it remains nameless. It is the creator's lifelong companion. To increase your creator energy, ward off jadedness at all costs. Commit to childlike curiosity and nix the rules. The creator is naturally attractive and coveted. As its energy zings with possibility, you can feel when a creator type enters the room. All eyes land on them. When this archetype is evolved, it is curious, playful, open, and surprising. When it's in its lower archetype, it loses its spark and it feels burdened. And it says to go deeper, you can read Vincent van Gogh's letters to his brother Theo. Okay. And so then I pulled one more card and I was like, okay, how do we layers of experience, and that by tuning into them, seeking to find a means of helping the layers relate, we can come to find a deeper wholeness and healing. I literally feel that's what we just did with this chart. We looked at all the different lenses and how they relate. I'm going to read that again. Altered states of awareness, guidance, and understanding. This card is a recognition that we exist on many layers of experience, and by tuning into them, seeking to find a means of helping the layers relate, we come to find a deeper wholeness and healing. Closing my eyes opens my vision to a far-reaching, imaginable realm of endless possibility. Learning to explore and relate to these many other states of being informs my life in ways that may, at first, seem easy to dismiss, yet contain irrefutable keys to unlocking my potential. Inquiry. What are my dreams, visions, fantasies helping me to see about my life right now? And I'd add, how are they, because I wrote in the thumbnail, dreaming and awakening in layers. I'd add, how are my dreams, visions, fantasies helping me to see about what are my dreams, visions, fantasies? Lucid in said dream. Because we're all in a waking dream. It's just a matter of whether we are lucid or completely moving unconsciously through said dream space. Okay, I think I touched on everything that I wanted to touch on. I'm going to go ahead and link this PDF over there. I have linked the new moon video where I dived all into the crone and the unicorn. The new moon that seeded this full moon culmination linked over there. I also linked another one where I dove into the unicorn as Cancer and the lion as Leo, and this like battle between this war between those parts of our consciousness, this like war between the lion and the unicorn. I tagged that video too. And then I also tagged a whole bunch of other like esoteric astrology videos from other astrologers that dive into the concept of the evolution of the goat, the sea goat, or even the alligator or the dragon, depending on what culture you're looking at. This evolution of the archetype of Capricorn that ultimately is evolved into this like ascended unicorn figure. So it's very interesting that both Capricorn and Cancer are strongly connected to the unicorn, these opposite signs. I dove into that in that video. All right, guys, we don't meet again until the end of the month for the next video. I'm gonna do a B&B episode. I'm just not sure when, so I'll let you guys know. But I think I'm gonna read this Dark Crystal book. I think I'm gonna read that instead. I picked it up from the library the other day with my kid, and I think I'm gonna read it. That story's been popping up a lot lately, and I think we're gonna read that. It's not the original book. It is a newer, I'm not sure if it's a prequel or where it really falls on the timeline of events, but if you want to kind of follow along with that and you want to kind of have a background knowledge, I would watch the Dark Crystal movie from 1982. And then after you watch that, watch the prequel new Netflix season. I think it's just like one season of the, what's it called? Like rebellion of the revolution or something. I can't remember what it's called. But the new Netflix thing, that's a prequel. So that it happened before my thing is like glitched. How am I gonna get out of this if I can't even, okay, let me hit exit. Okay, there, that worked. I have like a touch screen and it like super glitches. Okay, I have to try to end the screen before it's all messed up. There was an error. When did this glitch out on me? End stream.